My son Lars died of leukemia on a Tuesday in February of 2008. He was 14 years old. He had helped me plant the row of sour cherry trees at the back of our family orchard the summer before his diagnosis. The row is called Lars's Row. At the entrance is a small brass marker he hammered into a gate post himself at age 10 that reads, Lars's Row, do not enter. On a Saturday morning in June, the first drive-through caravan of the Leelanau Ladies Wine Society clipped that gate post. Lars's brass marker fell into the gravel. My wife held it in our kitchen that night and cried for 30 minutes. I said, out loud, Greta, I am going to build a gate. What I built, 3 months later, stopped 60 cars in 30 seconds. Stay with me. My name is Knut Halverson, and for 30 years I wore a green badge. I was a Michigan Department of Natural Resources Conservation Officer from 1989 to 2019, assigned to District 1, which covers most of the northwestern Lower Peninsula. I worked fish and wildlife enforcement, boater safety, commercial poaching cases, and the occasional bear relocation. I made sergeant in 2004. I retired at 62 with a bad right knee, 2 letters of commendation, and a drawer full of thank you notes from families whose kids I had pulled out of the South Branch of the Boardman River on separate occasions. I retired to run the family cherry orchard. The farm has been in the Halverson family since 1898, when my great-grandfather Ola Halverson walked off a steamer in Chicago from Stavanger, Norway, and walked most of the way north to Leelanau County because he had read in a Norwegian-language Chicago newspaper that the soil there was like Hardanger. He bought 40 acres of glacial moraine on the western shore of the Leelanau Peninsula in 1898. He planted sour cherries in 1899. My grandfather Ivar added 20 acres in 1931. My father Sven added a back 40 in 1962. I am the 4th Halverson to prune these trees. The orchard is now 173 acres. I live in the farmhouse Ole built with my wife Greta, a retired school administrator who ran the K-12 district office in Suttons Bay for 24 years. We raised 2 children on this land. Our daughter Ingrid is a wildlife biologist with the Michigan DNR, stationed in Gaylord. She has a 4-year-old daughter named Tova, who visits every other weekend and thinks the orchard belongs to her specifically. Our son Lars died of acute lymphoblastic leukemia on a Tuesday in February of 2008. He was 14 years old. He had helped me plant a row of 30 Balaton sour cherries at the back of the orchard the summer before his diagnosis. The row is still called Lars's Row. At the entrance to the row is a small brass marker he hammered into the gate post himself on his 10th birthday. It reads, Lars's Row, do not enter. Greta and I walk that row together every evening in the summer. We tell Lars what we see. The farm is accessed from 2 directions. The main road is a gravel drive off M22, the state highway that runs up the west side of the peninsula. The back road is a private farm lane that runs the full length of the orchard from M22 to Shady Hollow Road, where the county road ties into a county forest tract. My great-grandfather Ole cut the lane in 1898 with a pair of oxen. It has been a Halverson family private road for 126 years. There has never been a recorded easement. Ever. Old Leland wagon riders asked to pass through. The mailman asked. The UPS driver asked. The fire chief asked. For 126 years, the answer was always yes, and nobody ever abused the privilege. In 2021, a developer named Crestline Homes platted a 40-unit subdivision called Orchard Hills Estates on the old Marsden Apple Farm, 3 parcels north of us. They marketed it to wine country retirees from Chicago and Detroit. The houses sold fast. The second wave of residents moved in through 2022 and 2023. They were, mostly, decent people. They waved when they drove past. They bought cherries from the farm stand. Then, in the summer of 2023, a woman named Camilla Ostrander bought the corner lot at Orchard Hills and figured out that driving through the Halverson private farm lane cut her commute to the Leelanau Wine Trail from 28 minutes to 7. She did not ask. She just started driving. I noticed her first in September of 2023. I was on a stepladder in Block 4, pruning water sprouts, when a white Range Rover drove past on my private lane at roughly 30 miles per hour, going southbound. The driver, a blonde woman in sunglasses, did not slow down. She did not look up. I watched from my ladder as she disappeared into the stand of hemlocks at the south end of the property. I wrote the license plate down in the pocket notebook I have carried since 1989. 2 days later, the same Range Rover came through at 4:02 p.m. northbound, at roughly 35 miles per hour. A week later, twice in one day. Within a month, I was logging her 4 to 6 times a day. I ran the plate on the reverse public lookup tool I still have access to through the DNR retiree directory. Registered to Camilla Ostrander, 14 Vintage Vineyard Lane, Suttons Bay, Orchard Hills Estates. I drove down to her house on a Saturday morning with a plate of Greta's cinnamon rolls. Camilla opened the door in a white linen robe and a kombucha. "Good morning, I'm Knut Halverson. I live on the farm north of yours. I wanted to introduce myself, and I wanted to talk to you about the farm lane behind our properties." She smiled, a practiced, bright smile. "Oh, Mr. Halverson, thank you for the cinnamon rolls. I've been meaning to introduce myself. I love that little road. It saves me such a headache getting to the wine trail." That's what I wanted to talk about. That road is private property. It's our family farm lane. It has been for 126 years. She tilted. "Oh, I'm sure we can work something out. Community roads like that are such wonderful shared resources. You know, in Europe, people share these little country lanes all the time. It's part of the rural charm." "Camilla, this is not a shared resource. This is our farm road. I'd like to ask you to stop using it." She did not stop smiling. "Mr. Halverson, I hear you. I will absolutely look into alternate routes. Thank you for bringing it to my attention." She closed the door. I walked back to my truck. I sat for a minute. Then I drove home. She did not stop. She drove through the lane the following morning at 7:41. She drove through at noon. She drove through at 3:12. She drove through at 6:04. The pattern repeated, with minor variations, for 90 straight days. I posted no trespassing signs on both ends of the lane in November. State law compliant. Reflective aluminum. The signs disappeared within 3 days. I replaced them. They disappeared again. I installed a steel cable across the north entrance in December with a keyed padlock. On the second day, the cable was cut at the eye bolt. I replaced it. On the 5th day, the padlock was smashed. I replaced both. On the morning of January 20th, 2024, my trail camera caught Pierce Ostrander, Camilla's husband, a commercial real estate developer who commuted to Chicago, using a portable angle grinder to cut the cable at 5:20 in the morning. Pierce was wearing a headlamp and a down jacket. The grinder took 11 minutes. He drove the cable into a ditch, got back in his Mercedes, and drove south through the lane. Camilla followed in the Range Rover 19 minutes later. I sent the clip to my old DNR partner, Stig Johansson, who lives 3 miles down the shore. Stig called me back at 6:45. "Knut, what do you want to do?" "I want to do this right. I want to take the long road. Long roads take years." "Stig, I've got trees in Lars's road that have been there 21 years. I know about long roads." Stig laughed. Stig has known me since we roomed together at the DNR Academy in 1988. "Knut, you call Astrid?" "Not yet. Call Astrid and put a proper gate up and get cameras on every post. I will drive over this afternoon and help you hang them." Astrid Thorson is a property rights attorney in Traverse City. I had known her for a decade. She had handled 2 DNR wildlife corridor cases with me. She answered my call at 7:11 a.m. "Knut, what do you have?" "A neighbor driving through my farm lane 6 times a day. Her husband cut my cable at 5:20 this morning. I have him on camera. The lane has never been an easement. It has been private for 126 years. "Knut, yes. Do not confront them. Document everything. I want to see you Wednesday. Bring every log, every plate number, every photo, every video." "Understood." By Wednesday, I had a binder. Astrid's office in Traverse City sits on the corner of Front Street and Park, on the 3rd floor of a Victorian with a bay window overlooking West Grand Traverse Bay. She had coffee, a yellow legal pad, and a whiteboard with a marker when I arrived at 10 a.m. Wednesday. She read the binder for 40 minutes without speaking. Then she said, "Knut, here is the picture. You have a perfect record, no recorded easement, 126 years of private family use, a neighbor openly trespassing on video, a husband destroying private property on video. Michigan Compiled Laws Section 750.552 defines this as criminal trespass. MCL 750.377A defines the cable destruction as malicious destruction of property. Both are misdemeanors on first offense, felonies on repeat. Good. But here's what I want to watch out for. Michigan prescriptive easement law requires 15 years of open, notorious, continuous, adverse, and hostile use for an easement to vest. Your neighbor has been using your lane for about 7 months. That is nowhere near the threshold. But, and this is important, she is setting the foundation. If she uses it for another 14 years and 7 months, and you do nothing, she could argue vesting. So I stop her now. You stop her now. You make the trespass so well documented that any future court would laugh at a prescriptive easement claim. We file a formal cease and desist tomorrow. We file a criminal complaint on Pierce. We put her on notice through certified mail. We build the wall of paper early. Understood. Astrid drafted the cease and desist that afternoon. The letter went certified mail Friday morning. Camilla signed for it on Monday at 11:14 a.m. She responded that afternoon with her own letter on Orchard Hills Estates HOA letterhead, claiming that the Halverson Lane constituted a historic community right-of-way and that the HOA board had formally recognized it as such in a resolution passed in September of 2022, before she had even moved in. Astrid laughed when she read the letter. Knut, HOAS cannot recognize easements on properties they do not own. A Michigan HOA could pass a resolution declaring the moon a community amenity. It would have the same legal effect. She believes it. She will not believe it after we serve her with the criminal complaint on Pierce. Leelanau County Sheriff Tobias Morgan served Pierce Ostrander with the MCL 750.377, a criminal complaint on a Thursday afternoon at his Orchard Hills home. Pierce was wearing a golf shirt. His face went white. He retained a Chicago attorney named Philip Dreyfus within 48 hours. Philip Dreyfus called Astrid the next Monday to propose a settlement. Astrid let me sit in on the call on speakerphone. Philip said, "Ms. Thorson, my client acknowledges an unfortunate incident regarding a cable crossing your client's lane. He is prepared to pay $5,000 in damages and to execute a written agreement that he will not interfere with the lane going forward. In exchange, we ask that the criminal complaint be withdrawn." Astrid said, "Mr. Dreyfus, we are not withdrawing. Mr. Halverson wants the criminal record to stand. Your client can plead it out or take it to trial." Philip was quiet. Astrid continued, "Additionally, we are prepared to file a second criminal complaint regarding Mrs. Ostrander's continuing trespass. We have 231 time-stamped video clips of her vehicle on the lane over the past year. She is facing compounding misdemeanor charges under MCL 750.552. Ms. Thorson, my client's wife is the president of the Orchard Hills HOA. These are not hardened criminals. They are professional people navigating a difficult neighbor situation. Mr. Dreyfus, the neighbor situation is difficult because your client destroyed a private cable at 5:20 on a January morning. We have it on video. We are not inviting a negotiation. We are inviting a resolution." Philip hung up. Pierce pleaded guilty in April to a reduced charge, $1,500 fine, 90 days of suspended jail time, restitution for the cable. Camilla was not charged criminally on Astrid's strategic recommendation. Astrid wanted her to think she had escaped consequence. "Knut," Astrid said, "we are building the long file. I want her confident. I want her to keep documenting her own behavior." She did. Camilla announced the inaugural Leelanau Ladies Wine Society Summer Drive-Thru on Facebook in May. 40 cars, $20 community tour fee, scheduled for the first Saturday in June. The caravan route, on her posted map, ran directly down the Halverson family farm lane. I called Astrid. Astrid said, "Knut, let it happen. Have every camera rolling. Have Stig document from the hedge. Do not block the lane. This caravan is going to be the best evidence we get." Astrid, she's charging them $20. Knut, that's commercial use of private property. That upgrades the trespass to a civil fraud claim. The inaugural Wine Society caravan rolled down my lane on Saturday, June 7th, at 11 o'clock in the morning. 38 cars. I counted. Camilla led in her white Range Rover with a walkie-talkie. A second woman in a yellow Porsche Cayenne brought up the rear. Between them drove a mix of luxury SUVs, 2 classic convertibles, and 1 genuinely beautiful 1967 Austin Healey. Greta and I watched from the farmhouse porch. Stig watched from the hedge at the south end, with a professional camera on a tripod. Astrid's paralegal was in the north drainage ditch with a drone. The caravan took 11 minutes to pass. 3 drivers tossed plastic wine glasses onto the shoulder. One of the Porsches ran a tire over the base of a 24-year-old Montmorency cherry at the edge of Block 7. The tree will survive. It will not produce a full crop next year. The last car out the south end was the yellow Porsche. The rear bumper caught the Lars's Row gate post as it turned onto Shady Hollow Road. I heard the impact from the porch, a hollow metallic thunk. The post did not come down, but the brass marker Lars had hammered to it on his 10th birthday, the one that read, "Lars's Row, do not enter," was knocked loose. It fell onto the gravel shoulder. Greta made a small sound next to me. I walked down to the post after the caravan cleared. I picked the marker up out of the gravel. 2 of the 4 original finishing nails were bent. The brass was scratched. Lars's handwriting was still legible. I carried it back to the house in both hands. I washed it in the kitchen sink. I dried it with a soft rag. Greta stood in the doorway and watched me. She did not speak. I set the marker on the kitchen windowsill above the basil plant. I said, "Son, we will put you back up when we put the new gate in." Greta said, "Knut." I did not turn around. I called Astrid at 9:42 that night. "Astrid, they hit Lars's post." She was quiet for a long minute. Then she said, "Knut, I am going to ask you a hard question. Are you okay?" "Astrid, I am 69 years old, and I've seen more than one thing go sideways in this life. But this one was my son. I am not okay, but I am focused." "Knut, I'm driving up tomorrow. I'll be at your house at 9. Bring every video, every ticket stub, every receipt. We are escalating the plan." Good. But before Astrid came, something else happened. On Sunday at 2:15 p.m., Pierce Ostrander drove up my gravel driveway alone in his Mercedes S-Class. He parked. He walked up to my porch with a manila folder. Greta stepped outside with me. I stood behind the screen door. Pierce said, "Knut, may I have a word?" "You may have one. Say it." "I would like to discuss a business arrangement with you. I'm prepared to offer you $300,000 for a permanent right-of-way easement across your farm lane. In exchange, your family lane becomes a codified community access point for Orchard Hills Estates. We formalize what has been informal." Pierce: "Hear me out. My firm is developing a 20-acre parcel west of Orchard Hills. We need ingress through your lane. We're prepared to make it worth your while." Pierce: "That lane has been in my family for 126 years. It is not for sale. It is not for lease. It will never be an easement. I am going to ask you to leave my porch." "Knut, be reasonable. $300,000 is..." Pierce: "Leave." He stood for another long 10 seconds. He looked at the cherry blossoms. He looked at Greta. He looked at me. He said, quietly, "Mr. Halverson, there are ways this gets ugly for you. I would prefer we avoid them." Greta's hand tightened on my arm. I said, "Pierce, whatever you think you have, I have more. Please leave before I say something I will regret." He left. I called Astrid back at 2:31 p.m. Sunday afternoon. Astrid listened to the recording of the conversation. My porch has a doorbell camera with audio, twice. Then she said, "Knut, I am accelerating the plan. I will be at your house tomorrow at 6 a.m. We need to move before Pierce does." Astrid arrived at 5:52 Monday morning in a rented Jeep Wrangler with a paralegal named Sigrid Carlson and 2 boxes of binders. She had been up since midnight. She sat at our kitchen table. She spread out a series of printouts. "Knut, before I explain what I found, I want you to listen to a recording." She pressed play on her phone. The recording was Pierce Ostrander talking to Bjorn Lindqvist, our 91-year-old neighbor who has owned the orchard east of ours since 1967. Bjorn is sharper than most 40-year-olds. He had worn a recorder Saturday afternoon when Pierce visited him with a question about the old lane's history. Pierce had offered Bjorn $20,000 to sign an affidavit stating that he had seen community vehicles using the Halverson Lane regularly and openly for at least 35 years. Bjorn had listened patiently. Bjorn had said, "Mr. Ostrander, I will consider it and get back to you." Bjorn had driven straight to Stig Johansson's house and told him everything. Stig had set up the wire. Pierce had come back the following afternoon. The wire had recorded everything. Astrid said, "Knut, Pierce Ostrander attempted to bribe an elderly neighbor into submitting a fraudulent affidavit to establish a prescriptive easement across your property. In Michigan, that is both witness tampering under MCL 750.122 and conspiracy to commit real estate fraud. Federal authorities are very interested in real estate fraud cases that cross state lines. Greta set her coffee down. Astrid continued. Second, Pierce Ostrander is not a licensed real estate broker in Michigan. He is licensed in Illinois only. He has been conducting what he calls development consultation for a 20-acre parcel west of Orchard Hills that his company has an option to purchase. That parcel has no road access except through your lane. Without an easement from you, the parcel is worth approximately $400,000. With an easement, it is worth approximately $3 million. That is why he offered you $300. Continue. Third, Pierce's company, Crestline Holdings LLC, has been quietly acquiring options on 4 adjacent parcels west of Orchard Hills since 2023. He has been representing to his investors that community access rights are already secured. They are not. If his investors find out, he is facing civil fraud suits in the 8-figure range. Keep going. Fourth, Camilla's Leelanau Ladies Wine Society has been charging $20 per vehicle for 18 months of drive-thrus. She has pocketed approximately $36,000 in unreported income. That is a tax issue the IRS is going to love. Greta muttered, "That woman." Fifth, the HOA's September 2022 resolution, recognizing the lane as a historic community right-of-way, was never formally filed with Leelanau County. It is an internal HOA document with no legal weight, but Pierce has been representing it to investors as if it is a recorded document. Sixth, the FBI has had a file open on Pierce for 2 years regarding a similar scheme in Lake County, Illinois, where he claimed easement rights on property he did not control. I called my former colleague at the Michigan Attorney General's office yesterday. The AG is already coordinating with FBI's Chicago field office. Seventh, and this is the one I want you to hold carefully. Camilla's Wine Society Facebook posts. I archived all 237 videos and captioned posts from the past 18 months. Every single one shows commercial use of your private road. Every one geotagged to your property. Every one has her face in it. She has built the prosecution's case for us. Astrid closed the folder. Newt. Here is my recommendation. We file civil suit this week for continuing trespass and destruction. We file a criminal complaint on Camilla for the unreported income. We coordinate with the AG on Pierce. We contact the FBI. And then we build you the most beautiful and unbreakable gate in the state of Michigan. The kind of gate that ends this the first time she tries to push through it. Greta said. Astrid, how long? 6 weeks for the gate, 8 for the FBI, 12 for the civil case to have teeth. I said, Astrid, do all of it. She said, Newt, one more thing. I want you to plan this for one specific day. Her autumn wine pilgrimage. 60 cars, September 19th. Let her gather all her evidence for us in one place. I thought about it for a moment. Then I said, Astrid, build me that gate. The next 96 days were the most organized, methodical, quiet operation of my retirement. Astrid filed the civil suit against Camilla and Pierce Ostrander, Crestline Holdings LLC, and the Orchard Hills Estates HOA on a Thursday in June. She filed a Michigan Attorney General complaint on Friday. She filed an IRS referral on Monday. The Michigan Attorney General's office coordinated with the FBI Chicago field office within the week. Stig Johansson and Bjorn Lindquist gave formal statements. Bjorn's wire recording became a sealed exhibit. Meanwhile, I designed the gate. I had been thinking about it for years, in the quiet way that a man thinks about the things he might have to do someday. Now I had a reason. I drew it out on the back of a seed catalog, then on a legal pad, then on an architect's tracing paper Ingrid picked up for me at her office. I consulted with a metal fabricator in Traverse City named Oscar Lindberg. Oscar is 54, runs Lindberg Metalworks out of a converted fishing warehouse on the East Bay, and has a commercial gate rated for NATO Level 3 vehicle intrusion. He did not normally build residential gates. I showed him my drawing. Oscar looked at it. He said, Newt, this is not a residential gate. No, it is not. You want it on solar? Yes, fully off-grid. Dual cellular alert. Vehicle plate recognition from a whitelist. 8 feet tall? 8 feet tall. Steel tubing filled with concrete. Commercial hydraulic mount. I want it to look like something my great-grandfather would have built if he had the technology. You want it to be beautiful. I want it to be undeniable. He looked at the drawing for a long time. Then he said, Newt, I will build this gate. I will build it on my own time. You pay me materials only. I have been looking for a project like this for 20 years.
Oscar, why?
Because the last time I saw a man's face look like yours when he drew a gate, it was my father after my sister died in a car wreck. I know what kind of gate this is.
We shook on it.
The gate took 6 weeks to fabricate. Stig and I installed it on a Tuesday morning in early August, with Oscar supervising. We sank 2 reinforced concrete piers, 3 feet deep on either side of the lane. We mounted the hydraulic arms. We ran the solar conduit. We installed the plate reader and the cellular controller. We tested the white list with my truck, Greta's truck, Ingrid's truck, and the Halverson farm tractor. The gate closed on itself the first time at 4:17 p.m. The takeaway from that, if you ever decide you need a gate that cannot be pushed through, bolted past, or rammed, is this. Modern commercial-grade gate hardware is affordable. Solar power on a gate controller costs less than a mid-range refrigerator. Vehicle plate recognition is a few $100s. What expensive fabricators are selling you is not a technology. It is a philosophy. And the philosophy is this: some boundaries deserve to be engineered, not argued. The gate was, objectively, beautiful. The steel posts were powder-coated matte black. The crossbars curved in the shape of cherry branches, which Oscar had added as a surprise. At the top of the primary arm, he had inlaid a small brass plate with 3 lines. The Halverson family lane, established 1898, private. The brass caught the evening sun the first night like a small flame. I mounted Lars's original Lars's row, "Do not enter" marker on the gatepost itself. Above it, I added a second brass plate I had commissioned. Lars Halverson, 1993 to 2008. This gate is for him. I did not tell Greta until I showed her at sunset. She stood at the gate for a long time without speaking. Then she said, "Newt, that's the thing I have been waiting 20 years for you to build." I did not trust my voice. I nodded. In the 3rd week of August, Camilla Ostrander announced on her Leelanau Ladies Wine Society Facebook page the Autumn Wine Pilgrimage. 60 cars, 2 days, the grand tour of the Leelanau Wine Trail, scheduled for September 19th and 20th. Her announcement named the Halverson Lane as the official scenic approach road. I gave a 15-minute interview to the Traverse City Record Eagle on September 8th, 3 weeks before the pilgrimage. The piece ran on page 1 on September 10th. Reporter named Kyra Sanborn from the NBC affiliate saw the piece and called for a television segment. I said yes to everything. By September 15th, the story was on every local news outlet in Northwest Michigan. By September 17th, Camilla had not canceled the pilgrimage. By September 18th, the FBI was 48 hours out from closing their case on Pierce. By September 19th, the cameras were ready. The night before the pilgrimage, something happened that, frankly, I had been expecting. At 1:31 a.m. on September 19th, my cellular motion alert fired at the north gate. The video was clear. Camilla Ostrander, in black leggings and a headlamp, approached the gate at 1:31. She carried a sawzall with a fresh metal cutting blade and a 5-pound sledgehammer. Pierce was 15 feet behind her with a pair of bolt cutters. The alert went to me, to Stig, to Astrid, to Sheriff Tobias Morgan, and to Conservation Officer Haldor Peterson, who was on night shift and had been briefed 2 weeks earlier. Stig and Haldor rolled up the gravel lane in Haldor's DNR truck at 1:44. I stayed inside the house. Greta sat with her hand on my knee. We watched the video on my laptop. Camilla had been on the gate for 13 minutes when Haldor's headlights came around the bend. She dropped the sawzall. Pierce dropped the bolt cutters. They both ran. Haldor did not pursue. He stopped at the gate. He photographed the abandoned tools. He collected them in evidence bags. He walked the gate perimeter with a flashlight and documented 4 cut marks in the steel, 2 divots in the powder coating, and 1 bent hinge bolt. The gate had held. Oscar's fabrication was good. The hardened steel tubing had resisted the sawzall. The concrete-filled posts had not budged. The hinge had been tested to 2,000 pounds of torque. Camilla's 5-pound sledgehammer had not come close. Halder brought the evidence to me at 2:40. He sat in my kitchen with Stig while Greta made coffee. Halder said, "Knut, they left their DNA on the bolt cutters. Pierce's company name is on the sawzall. We have them cold." Haldor, "Do not arrest tonight." "Why not?" "Because I want her to drive up my lane at 11 a.m. tomorrow with 60 cars behind her and see the gate. And I want you and Sheriff Morgan waiting at the shoulder when she tries to get out of the car." Halder looked at me. He looked at Stig. He looked at Greta. He said, "Newt, that's poetic." I said, "Haldor, that's my wife's cherry tree." He nodded once. He left at 3 a.m. At 5, I walked out to the gate with my flashlight. I ran my hand along the cut marks. I felt the divots. I read Lars's brass marker in the dark by flashlight. I ran my thumb over the letters. I said, "Son, today is the day." I went back to the house. I slept for 2 hours. At 7:30, Ingrid arrived with Tova in the back seat of her state truck. Tova was wearing her small yellow jacket and carrying a stuffed cherry, the one I had given her for her 4th birthday. She ran up the porch steps to me. "Grandpa, Mom said today is the gate day." "It is, Tova. Can I see the gate close?" Greta looked at me. I said, "Tova, you sit with Grandma on the porch. You will see everything from there. But you stay with Grandma." She nodded solemnly. She held Greta's hand. At 8, Sheriff Tobias Morgan arrived with 3 deputies. Conservation Officer Haldor Peterson arrived with 2 more DNR officers. Astrid Thoresen drove up at 8:20 with Sigrid and a court stenographer. Kira Sanborn from the NBC affiliate came at 8:30 with a camera truck. The Traverse City Record Eagle sent a photographer. The Leelanau Enterprise sent 2 reporters. Stig brought coffee and cinnamon rolls. Bjorn Lindqvist walked over from his orchard at 9:15, wearing his 1953 Korean War veteran's cap. He sat on the porch with Greta and Tova. He did not speak. He watched the lane. At 10:03, a sheriff's dispatcher called Sheriff Morgan. Pierce Ostrander had been arrested at his Orchard Hills home 45 minutes earlier by 2 FBI agents. He was en route to the federal detention facility in Traverse City for arraignment on wire fraud, conspiracy, and witness tampering charges. He had not yet told Camilla. Sheriff Morgan said to me quietly, "Knut, she does not know." "Good. She's going to come up that lane with 60 cars in a couple of hours and not know her husband is in custody." "That's right. Knut, this is going to be the most expensive mile of road in Leelanau County history." I did not smile. I looked down the lane. I said, "Sheriff, it was always going to be." The caravan appeared on Shady Hollow Road at 10:52. I saw them through Stig's spotting scope from the farmhouse porch. 60 vehicles, give or take, stretched back 3/4 of a mile down the county road toward Lake Leelanau. Camilla's white Range Rover led. The yellow Porsche Cayenne from the summer caravan was in 3rd position. A vintage Mercedes SL convertible drove between them. Kira Sanborn's cameraman started rolling from a tripod at the end of my driveway. Sheriff Morgan walked to the gate. Haldor Peterson took position behind the hemlock hedge with a body cam on record. The 2 FBI agents who had been briefed at 6 a.m. stood near the gate in civilian clothes. I did not go to the gate. Astrid had been explicit. "Newt, you are the homeowner. You are not the enforcement. You stay on the porch. Let the officers do their jobs. The cameras will come to you." Greta held my hand on the porch swing. Tova sat on Bjorn's knee and watched the road. The Range Rover pulled up to the closed gate at 11:03. Camilla got out. She was wearing a cream linen driving coat, leather boots, and sunglasses. She was holding a key fob that had a tiny Leelanau Wine Trail logo on it. She walked to the gate. She pressed the fob. The gate did not move. She pressed it again. Nothing. A 3rd time. Nothing. She looked up at the gate. Her eyes tracked the crossbars shaped like cherry branches. Her eyes tracked the brass plate at the top that read, "The Halvorsen Family Lane, established 1898, private." Her eyes stopped at the smaller brass plate below it that read, "Lars Halvorsen, 1993 to 2008. This gate is for him." She did not know what that meant. She started to walk around the gate toward the intercom. Sheriff Morgan stepped into her path. "Mrs. Ostrander." "Sheriff, thank God. There has been a malfunction with our community access gate. Can you help us get it open?" Sheriff Morgan did not smile. "Mrs. Ostrander, this is a private gate on private property. You are trespassing. I am going to ask you to return to your vehicle and back your caravan down the lane to Shady Hollow Road." "Sheriff, this is our community access." "Ma'am, you have been served 2 cease and desist notices in the past 90 days. This lane has never been a community access road. This is the Halvorsen family farm. Please return to your vehicle." "Sheriff, I am the president of the Orchard Hills HOA, and Mrs. Ostrander, I am aware. I am also aware of an arrest warrant for your activities at this gate at 1:31 this morning." Camilla's face changed. I watched it from the porch through the spotting scope. She said, "Sheriff, what?" "Mrs. Ostrander, You attempted to damage this gate with a sawzall at 1:31 this morning. We have video. We have fingerprints. We have your husband's tool."
Sheriff, my husband? Where is my husband?
"Your husband was arrested 47 minutes ago by the FBI at your home on federal wire fraud charges." Camilla's knees buckled slightly. She caught herself on the gate post. "Mrs. Ostrander, I am going to ask you to place your hands on the top of your vehicle. You are under arrest for felony malicious destruction of property, attempted fraud, and conspiracy." She did not put her hands on the car. She lunged at Sheriff Morgan's chest with a closed fist. Deputy Brigitte Swenson caught her wrist from behind within 2 seconds. Camilla struggled. She kicked at the sheriff. She caught Deputy Swenson once in the knee. She was in cuffs within 9 seconds. The cameras caught it all. Behind the Range Rover, the yellow Porsche Cayenne driver got out, an older woman in a cream scarf. She had been the one who hit Lars's post in June. She walked slowly up to the gate. She saw the small brass plate, Lars Halverson, 1993 to 2008. This gate is for him. She stood for a long moment. Then she turned to her car. She said, loud enough that the microphones caught it, "Everybody, turn around. We are leaving." The caravan began to back up. The woman in the cream scarf came back to the gate with tears in her eyes. She looked toward my porch. She made eye contact with me across 100 yards. She nodded once. She got back in her Porsche. The 60 cars took 28 minutes to reverse out of the lane. Camilla was loaded into a Leelanau County Sheriff's transport cruiser at 11:22. She did not speak. She did not scream at the cameras. She stared at her hands the whole way. The cruiser drove off. Kira Sanborn walked up my porch steps with her microphone. She said, "Mr. Halverson, what do you want to say to the people watching at home?" I thought about it for a long minute. Then I said, "Kyra, I want to say something about my son." Kyra held the microphone steady. The cameraman framed me against the porch. I did not stand up. "My name is Newt Halverson. My family has farmed this land for 4 generations. My great-grandfather Ole cut this lane with a pair of oxen in 1898. My grandfather Ivar planted the first of our Montmorency cherries. My father Sven expanded the orchard to 231 acres. I worked as a Michigan DNR conservation officer for 30 years. I came home to run the orchard in 2019. I paused. My wife Greta and I had 2 children. Our daughter Ingrid is a state wildlife biologist. She is standing over there by the truck. Our son Lars died of leukemia on a Tuesday in February of 2008. He was 14 years old. Kira did not interrupt. The camera stayed. When Lars was 10, he nailed a brass marker to a gate post at the south end of our farm lane. The marker says, "Lars's row. Do not enter." The row was sour cherries he helped me plant. When Mrs. Ostrander's caravan came through this lane in June, one of the cars hit that post. The marker was knocked into a ditch. My wife stood in my kitchen that night and cried. I swallowed. I built this gate for 2 reasons. First, because for 126 years this lane has been private property, and I am not going to be the Halverson who lets that change. Second, because my son was 10 years old when he hammered a brass marker into a post on this road, and that marker is on this gate now. This gate is for him. I looked directly into the camera. If you are watching at home and you have ever had a neighbor decide that what is yours should be hers, read your own paperwork before you read hers. Document everything. Call a good attorney. Tell the sheriff. Build the gate. And when the day comes, do not negotiate. Do not explain. Do not justify. Let the gate do the talking. I stopped. Kira said, "Mr. Halverson, thank you." She pulled the microphone back. She did not ask another question. At 11:40, the FBI agents walked up the porch steps. The senior agent was a woman named Special Agent Lundgren from the Grand Rapids field office. She had a folder. She said, "Mr. Halverson, I want you to know that your evidence was the foundation of today's arrests. Pierce Ostrander is being held at the federal facility in Grand Rapids. We will be filing an 11-count federal indictment Monday morning. Mrs. Ostrander will be charged separately at the state level. We anticipate additional charges related to the Wine Society's commercial operation on your private road." Agent Lundgren, thank you. "Mr. Halverson, your brass plate, on the gate, the one with your son's name on it." "Yes, I saw it on the way up. I grew up in Marquette. My brother died at 15 from the same cancer. I know what that plate is." I did not speak for a moment. She said, "Mr. Halverson, your son would be very proud of you." She walked down the steps. Astrid came up after her with a tablet. She sat next to me on the swing. She said, "Newt, look at the camera feed. 6 of the caravan drivers are giving statements to Officer Peterson right now. 4 of them have said they were explicitly misled by Camilla about the easement status. They are going to be our witnesses." "Good. Knut, it is done." I did not answer for a long minute. Then I said, "Astrid, it is never done. But today, the gate holds." Kira's segment aired on the NBC affiliate at 6 p.m. It ran 11 minutes, uncut. It got picked up by the NBC national feed within 24 hours. The story went to the Associated Press on Sunday. The New York Times ran a sidebar piece the following Friday under the headline, "A cherry farmer built a gate for his son." The national press called the gate the most beautiful gate in Michigan. I did not watch the coverage. I sat on my porch with Greta and Tova and Bjorn, and we drank coffee and we watched the cherry trees. At sunset, I walked down to the gate alone. I ran my hand along the cool steel. I touched Lars's brass marker. I said, "Son, you held." The last light of the day caught the crossbars shaped like cherry branches. The aftermath unfolded through the fall and into the winter. Camilla Ostrander was charged with felony malicious destruction of property, conspiracy to commit real estate fraud, attempted fraud through a scheme affecting interstate commerce, assault on a law enforcement officer, and misdemeanor tax evasion for the unreported Wine Society income. She pleaded guilty in December to reduced charges, 300 hours of community service at the Leelanau County Animal Shelter, a $60,000 fine, 3 years of state probation, and a 5-year order of no contact with me, Greta, Ingrid, Tova, Stig, Bjorn, or any resident of Orchard Hills Estates. Pierce Ostrander was indicted by a federal grand jury in October on 11 counts, including wire fraud, conspiracy, witness tampering, and interstate real estate fraud. His Illinois real estate license was revoked in November. He pleaded guilty in January to 4 counts. He was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison and $600,000 in restitution to the investors his company had defrauded. He reported to federal prison in Duluth, Minnesota in March. Crestline Holdings LLC was dissolved in February. The 20-acre parcel Pierce had tried to secure easement rights on reverted to its original owner. The development never happened. The Orchard Hills Estates HOA held a recall election in October. 27 of the 40 households voted to remove Camilla from the board and rescind the 2022 Historic Community Right-of-Way resolution. The recall passed 35-2. Bjorn Lindquist's son, Magnus, a mechanical engineer, was elected the new HOA president. The new board's first act was a formal letter of apology to me, hand-delivered by Magnus with a bottle of cherry wine from his wife's garden. The Ostrander house at 14 Vintage Vineyard Lane went on the market in November. It sold in March for $240,000 less than they had paid for it. Camilla moved to a rental apartment in Grand Rapids. I am told she works at a wine bar. I do not ask. In December, Astrid's civil suit settled. The HOA paid me $200,000 in damages for the cumulative trespass, the cherry tree strike, the post damage, and the destruction of the original cable. I donated the full amount to the Traverse City Children's Cancer Foundation. I did not publicize the donation. The foundation director, a woman named Freya Lindholm, sent me a handwritten note that I keep in my desk drawer. In January, Greta and I established the Lars Halverson Young Naturalists Fund. The fund supports 3 things. First, a full scholarship to Michigan State University for 1 Leelanau County middle schooler per year pursuing a career in wildlife biology, conservation, or fisheries. Second, an annual Lars Halverson Forest Day at the Halverson Orchard on the first Saturday of June, where 50 local middle schoolers come to plant trees, learn about Michigan native species, and walk Lars's Row. Third, a small bronze plaque at every local trail that one of our young naturalists helps design or restore. Tova, who is now 5, attends every Lars Halverson Forest Day with me. She wears the small yellow jacket. She plants her own tree with help from her mother. Last year, she told me, walking back from Lars's Row, "Grandpa, Uncle Lars would have liked the kids." I said, "He would have, Tova." She said, "Grandpa, can Uncle Lars see us?" I said, "I think so, sweetie." In February of the following year, the Michigan Department of Natural Resources designated the Halverson Orchard as a state-registered wildlife corridor under the Wildlife Protection Act. The designation runs with the land in perpetuity. No future development can compromise the corridor. Ingrid coordinated the designation herself. She cried when the commissioner signed it. The gate stands. It has not been touched since September 19th. It opens for my truck, Greta's truck, Ingrid's state truck, the Halverson farm tractor, and, recently, for Tova's tiny pink bicycle, which Oscar added to the whitelist as a birthday gift for Tova's 5th. If you find yourself in a fight like mine, remember this. The land remembers its fences. The law remembers its lines. Your neighbors will forget, but your documents will not. Your family will be tested, but your gate can be engineered. Build the gate. Engrave your debt onto it. Let the steel carry the grief you cannot. And when the caravan comes, stand on the porch and let the gate do the talking. Petty power does not survive an undeniable boundary.